Welcome to the Fast Leader Podcast, where we explore convenient yet effective shortcuts that will help you get ahead and move forward faster by becoming a better leader. And now, here's your host, customer and employee engagement expert, and certified emotional intelligence practitioner, Jim Rimbach.
Need a powerful and entertaining way to ignite your next conference, retreat, or team building session? My keynotes don't include magic, but they do have the power to help your attendees take a leap forward by putting emotional intelligence into their employee engagement, and customer-centric leadership practices. So bring the infotainment creativity of the Fast Leader Show to your next event, and I'll help your attendees get over the hump now. Go to beyondmorale.com/speaking to learn more. Okay, Fast Leader Legion, today I'm excited because I have somebody on the show that when I had the opportunity to read his book, the clarity and simplicity of his teachings are really something that could be leveraged by almost everyone. Bill Dann was born and raised in Los Angeles, California, the fourth of four kids whose father was an attorney in the motion picture industry. After high school, Bill went off to the university of his forefathers, Cornell. There he obtained both his undergraduate and then graduate degree in business and public administration with an emphasis in health. While at Cornell, a recruiter from the Indian Health Service encouraged him to fulfill his military commitment by serving on a nice, warm Indian reservation. It ended up being in Alaska. After 2 years, he was offered an opportunity to go to Nome, Alaska, for 3 months to start a corporation whose purpose was to demonstrate new models of healthcare delivery and to give Alaska natives greater control over their lives. It lasted more than 3 years. There, Bill created an organization made up of workers, many of whom were new to healthcare and to work. It was truly a challenge. This led to a lifelong fascination with how to get individuals and organizations to be all that they can be. After teaching management for 6 summers at the Boston University School of Public Health, Bill was convinced that his experience in Nome had taught him universal principles about why and how people work. So in 1981, he started a consulting firm which became Professional Growth Systems, which continues today as his principal activity. As the author of Creating High Performers, 7 Questions to Ask Direct Reports, Bill's commitment as both a consultant and a writer is to enable individuals to achieve their full potential and fulfillment from work. Bill currently lives in Anchorage, Alaska with his beautiful Siberian Yupik bride, Jenny, of 40 years. He also has 1 son and now 2 wonderful grandchildren. Bill Dann, are you ready to help us get over the hump?
I am ready and excited.
Oh, so am I. You know, I've given our listeners a little bit about you, but can you tell us what your current passion is so that we can get to know you even better?
Well, my current passion is what we described in the bio. I'm still on an endless journey to find ways to unlock the potential of individuals at work. I feel that work is how we spend the majority of our time. It's a major source of satisfaction or dissatisfaction in our lives. And my mission is for people to feel as fulfilled from their work as possible. And if we focus on that, then the organizations will be successful and prosper as well.
Yeah, I definitely see that. The lines, I think, you know, we for the longest time have been talking about your work life and your home life. And I had a guest on the show a little while back, Eric Isle, who had said, you know what, really, it's just life.
Exactly.
And you need to bring the best of both of those things to wherever you may be.
Yeah. I mean, there is a challenge in finding balance between the two, and everybody has their own definition of that. But you're not going to be successful in your personal life if you're not feeling successful in your work life and vice versa.
That's for sure. Now, when I had the opportunity to review the 7 questions that you have in the book, and we're not going to list them all here because, I mean, that's why people, you know, continue after the podcast, right? Go to continue their teaching. But when I looked at the concepts and the constructs of the questions, I actually have taken those and really adjusted them a little bit and used them in a performance review process before. And I can tell you that when I have done that, the reactions that I got were somewhat strange, meaning that the folks who I had the opportunity to review and have those conversations with, you know, had said, I've never had a review like this before. I mean, it was just totally foreign to them.
Yeah.
So when you start looking at the 7 questions which one would you say that people actually say no to the most?
Probably the most important, and probably one of the most often people say no to, is I don't really have clarity about what's important to you. I know it's in the job description, but because of mixed messages or because we haven't really had that communication, I'm not really clear about what pushes your buttons and what's really important for me to do or not do in order to be successful in your eyes. I don't know what your personal standards are.
So when you start thinking about what you were just saying, I think that could be multifaceted, meaning from as an individual, me being an employee, that my boss isn't connecting with me or the company isn't connecting with me, but then also me as an individual, I really don't understand the purpose and sense of direction and when really achievement was potentially going to occur. So
Absolutely.
when you look at it from those different angles, what do you think that organizations struggle with the most? Is it the overall outside in, or is it the inside out piece?
I think it's the inside out piece. I think they find it easier to focus on what's our strategy, how are we going to grow, and much more difficult to focus on how do we optimize execution there, and how do we develop a culture that enables that to happen. And we're driven by Wall Street. We're driven by all kinds of factors that are focusing on numbers without really understanding what are the foundation elements to get to those numbers. Strategy is important, but execution will trump strategy, meaning that a well-executed inferior strategy will outperform a great strategy that isn't executed well.
It's a really interesting point, because I think when you look at the biggest struggle that most organizations have, it's really not in the planning components. It's really not in the developing of the strategies. And, you could arguably say it's not even in the areas of innovation. More so, it's in the areas of execution.
Exactly. Well, I think the biggest picture here is the most challenging thing in our lives is relationship, whether it's your personal life or your work life. And it is rare that we're able to get to a situation where we can be really honest with one another and explore why it is that we're not succeeding. I was coaching a client team yesterday, a leadership team that's trying to evolve to the CEO implementing a chief operating officer concept. And she's having a real challenge letting go. She feels like she's lost her team. She's lost a sense of importance. She's not showing up well. And, the COO said to me, well, we need to sit down and review the job descriptions to really get into this. And I said, no, you need to explore the relationship. What are the buttons that are being pushed trying to make this change? And how do we get through those? And until we find out the root causes of those that's in the DNA of who she is, what we put on paper isn't going to matter. We've already put it on paper and we're not abiding by it. So we're all scared to go there. We're all scared to have that kind of communication, which is what the 7 questions are trying to address, make it easier to start that dialogue.
Yeah, and I think when you started talking about that, I started thinking about something that's really important for us on the show. When you start, thinking about finding that strength, finding that focus and that purpose so that you can execute and you can move forward. And that's, we look at leadership quotes quite often because they can do just that. Do you have a quote or two that you can share with us that's important to you?
Well, I guess I'd like to begin by saying one of the things I think that leads to confusion is that leadership to me are really 2 domains. There is where are we going, what's our strategy, and what are the rules that are going to apply here. So that's kind of the general in an Army context, what's the mission and whatnot. And then there's the other side of leadership, which is really supervision, which is, okay, I've got that all defined. Now, how do I get the best out of my people? And sometimes we get those things confused and use it under a single word called leadership, but they're very, very different elements. And I think having that understanding is important. In the book, I talk about something that I got from Ken Blanchard, which is that there are really 2 kinds of problems that people have at work. One's a can't do problem, where I don't have the information, the skills, the authority, the resources to achieve what you want me to achieve or what I want to achieve. And the second is a won't do problem, where I've got all of that, but for any given reason, could be something related to work, something not related to work. I'm not motivated to go make that happen, and I'm not performing. And what I found working with supervisors is that they really struggle with how to decide which kind of problem it is and to stop beating themselves up for what is really the responsibility of the employee, which is to show up with motivation. So I think that's the first thing, the quote I would cite is that there are two types of problems: won't do and can't do. And if you don't have clarity about which kind of problem it is, you can't solve it.
Yeah, that's one thing that stood out to me as well. I recently had a conversation with somebody about the whole can't do, won't do, really mindset. And I often find, at least for this particular person who I had this discussion with, is that they took and flipped what they were saying was can't do from their won't do pile. And so it's like, no, you can do it. It's just you're choosing not to. And most of the things that are sitting there in your can't do pile really are won't do's.
Exactly. And you'll find it, I talk about this in the book, that the people with won't do problems will try to get it defined as can't do because they don't want to take responsibility for their own inaction.
So when you're having for me, I can, okay. So I don't have the patience a lot of times for people who are just crippled by won't do's. But unfortunately, sometimes those people are in very key and important roles with your organization because of their technical aptitudes and capabilities. What can an organization do to get those people to move?
Well, I think you got to first of all confront the truth. And I think this is what's difficult for people in leadership positions. They really have trouble doing that. And then begin an honest discussion. The reality here is that if you're choosing to not perform at your highest level, are you really happy about that? Likely you're not. So let's get to a common goal, right? I want you to be all you can be at work. For your self-esteem, wouldn't it make sense that you want to be? You used to perform really well. Now you're not choosing to. And let's find the root causes and see if we can find a solution. Sometimes those root causes are temporary. It could be something happening in their personal life. And sometimes those root causes can't be turned around. And there needs to be a wake-up call for that individual where they get counseled that, look, this clearly is no longer the right fit for you. So it's not you're bad, it's you're not happy, right? So you're not happy, we're not happy, we need to solve this together. And I think the problem is that we set up supervision as a judgment relationship. My job is to sit in judgment of you. And that dynamic is just a bad place to start from. If we begin with, look, we're partners and you're finding success at work and are finding success in our market. So how do we work together to accomplish that? And if we're not, how do we solve it?
I think those are some very good points. Thanks for sharing. One of the things that, I talk about is servant teamwork, because it seems more in tune and aligned with really where we're going as a society today, and really that collaborative model that you're talking about. And that in the workforce, we often find, and we're now having a generational issue where a lot of kids who are getting into the workforce have essentially been coddled and catered to much of their lives, and the whole, societal shifts in regards to getting the participant trophy, and that, they won't come and bring those things to work. And we're having, as supervisors, as leaders, to do more of that, tough love, parenting, those discussions. And when you start thinking about what I have to do in my workday, when I've got things piled on top of me that I have to do, having those discussions, I ain't got time for that. So do you see a shift having to take place in regards to, you talk about a job description a moment ago? Our job description is going to have to start shifting and changing and permit and allow for more of these discussions to take place so that companies can move forward? Or are we just going to continue to, kind of meet, getting ready to drive over the cliff and have people just start, bailing, who could potentially do these things at work, but they don't have the time, and so they feel frustrated?
Well, it's a great question. I talked about this in the book. I think most job descriptions are of little value. And the reason they're of little value is they're They're a construct that was created in order that I can evaluate the worth of a given position relative to another position. They're innate. They serve an HR or a personnel function. They don't serve a leadership function. What's missing is, what is it you expect me to produce? Not what are the activities I'm engaged in, but what are the outputs you're expecting from me? And how are you going to evaluate whether or not those are happening? And without that clarity, I think we set up the relationship for a lot of misunderstandings. Couple that with not really communicating what my personal standards are as a supervisor, and you have people set off on the wrong foot. And the book is about how many times I did that and learning the lesson from it, that I was contributing mightily to people's failure. They were doing the best they can. It was my inadequacies as their leader that was leading to the underperformance. You talk about, when was your aha moment? That was the aha moment for me, that I had to do. I couldn't simply lead by stating my belief in you. I believe that you can do it. You can get there from here. They needed help to get there from here. And my view at the time was that stepping in there to provide that was disrespectful. It was, overly paternalistic, or whatever you want to call it. And the reality is that's what people want from leadership, particularly initially.
We definitely have, as leaders, even as employees, have a lot of humps that we have to get over. And I think you were talking about your aha moment. But can you tell us the story that allowed you to actually come to that conclusion?
Well, there was a point in my career where I was working for a native-run organization, and the board of directors put a lot of pressure on me to replace myself and management positions in the organization with Alaska Natives. That was the purpose of the organization. And they pushed on me pretty hard, and I got pretty aggressive, and I went and found a young guy out of California who was from the region, had good credentials in healthcare, seemed very bright, and I brought him into a situation he was ill prepared for, and he got creamed. And to this day, I think about whatever happened to that young man who came home to live his dream of serving his people, and my inadequacies led to him being crushed. The professionals in the organization were not willing to give him a bye because he didn't know how to do the job, and I wasn't willing to provide enough time to give him the tools to do it well. And I, never forgiven myself for that. And that continues to be, a lesson that people deserve to have clarity, and they deserve to have coaching, and they deserve to have the training they need to be successful. That's the responsibility of leadership.
I think for me, Wes, thanks for sharing that. And I started thinking about, that, leadership can't be catch and release.
That's a great one. That'll go in my next book.
So I know you got a lot of things going on. You wrote this book. You talked about when we had the opportunity to, have some actually written dialogue earlier about, a legacy and about teaching, other people about the things that you've learned. But when you talked about your son and your wife, but when you look at all of those things, what are some of your goals?
Well, at this point, I'm in the late stages of my career. So my goals now are to mentor people who can do the same work that I'm doing and use our tools well, to have the proprietary products that we've developed that we think are really state of the art live on, and that, I create a legacy of successful organizations that have used the tools to really further their organizations and the people within them.
And the Fast Leader Legion wishes you the very best. Now, before we move on, let's get a quick word from our sponsor. An Even Better Place to Work is an easy-to-use solution that gives you a continuous diagnostic on employee engagement, along with integrated activities that will improve employee engagement and leadership skills in everyone. Using this award-winning solution is guaranteed to create motivated, productive, and loyal employees who have great work relationships with their colleagues and your customers. To learn more about An Even Better Place to Work, visit beyondmorale.com/better. All right, here we go, Fast Leader listeners. It's time for the Hump Day Hoedown. Okay, Bill, the Hump Day Hoedown is a part of our show where you give us good insights fast. So I'm going to ask you several questions, and your job is to give us robust yet rapid responses that are going to help us move onward and upward faster. Bill, Dan, are you ready to Hoedown?
I'm ready.
All right. So what do you think is holding you back from being an even better leader today?
The challenge I continue to struggle with is how to effectively hold people accountable.
What is the best leadership advice you have ever received?
Respect for other people and belief in them is not sufficient. You have to do the hard work of training and coaching them.
What is one of your secrets that you believe contributes to your success?
Respect for other people's point of view and ideas, and not having to have the solution be my own.
What is one of your best tools that helps you lead in business or life?
We've developed a strategic planning tool that I believe is terrific for bringing teams together, holding people accountable, and managing the journey to success.
What would be one book that you recommend to our listeners? And it could be from any genre.
Well, I really like the book. It's somewhat dated now by a gentleman named Inadequacies called Corporate Life Cycles. And it describes the phases of birth, life, and decay and death of an organization. I think it's got tremendous insights.
Okay, Fast Leader listeners, you can find links to that and Bill's book, Creating High Performers, 7 Questions to Ask Your Direct Reports, on the show notes page that you'll find at fastleader.net/Bill Dan. And that's Dan with 2 N's. Okay, Bill, this is my last Hump Day Hoedown question. Imagine you were given the opportunity to go back to the age of 25, and you've been given the opportunity to take the knowledge and skills that you have now back with you. But you can't take everything. You can only choose one. What skill or piece of knowledge would you take back with you, and why?
It's a great question. I thought a lot about it. And I think that I would take back the understanding now that we all put on our pants or skirt the same way. As a young man, I was very intimidated by people who were successful. I couldn't confront them. I couldn't approach them as equals. Today, I have no problem with that. And I think that being able to stand up to yourself and not be intimidated by those in authority or those that have a lot of success, I would have loved to have had that at age 25.
Bill, it was an honor to spend time with you today. Can you please share with the Fast Leader listeners how they can connect with you?
Well, you can go to me on LinkedIn. You can also find me on Twitter, and both those are available on our website, professionalgrowthsystems.com.
Bill, Dan, thank you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom. The Fast Leader Legion honors you and thanks you for helping us get over the hump. Thank you for joining me on the Fast Leader Show today. For recaps, links from every show, special offers, and access to download and subscribe, if you haven't already, head on over to fastleader.net so we can help you move onward and upward faster.